What's going on, people? Today I'm gonna teach you how to make a basic pattern matching game. Now the way this game operates is that it's gonna show a pattern, so each block is gonna be colored and then made to disappear, and then the next block will be colored and made to disappear again, and then you must match the blocks in which the color appeared. You must match the order in which those color appeared. Let me demonstrate it to you how it works. I'm gonna start it. Okay, it started here and here and then here. Now I'm gonna play till I lose to demonstrate
properly too. I'm not really good at this game even though I made it.
Okay. One, two, three, four. We're doing good so far. Okay, I failed. Now I'm gonna show you what happens when you don't do anything. You see this progress bar here is the time you are given. You see, time is up. You are given about 10 seconds to match the block, and the time is gonna increase. You're gonna be given more time as the game progresses further. So yeah, let's get into this. Okay, I'm gonna start a new project, Java application, and I'm gonna name it Java Pattern Matcher. Okay, I'm gonna make this class extend the JFrame, create my constructor, I'm gonna call the init method. I haven't defined it, I'll define it later. Then set location relative to. I'm doing this to set it in the middle. And then here, I'm just gonna call my constructor, new Java Pattern Matcher, set visible. Okay. And then I'm gonna define my init method here. I'm gonna declare a constant here, static final int. It's gonna be row count. These will be the number of rows of the buttons we need to select, so it's gonna be 5. And then call count, the number of columns of our buttons, it's also gonna be 5. And then I'm gonna go on top and I'm gonna create a class. I'm gonna call it indexed button. Okay, this is an extension of a J button. So here I'm gonna click Alt and then enter to import the J button, and then I'm gonna declare a variable here. I'm calling it index. Now this button will store the location of it within the grid of a lot of buttons. So I'm just gonna say public indexed button to create the constructor. Actually, I'm gonna do this index button and then I'm gonna auto generate it. and then say get index auto generated. Okay, and then I'm gonna make this class implement the action listener. And then I define the action performed here. Okay, now basically what an action listener is, it's basically a class that responds to certain events. Like when you click a button, in this instance we're gonna make it respond when a user clicks a button, and we're gonna use it for the timer. So we want the timer to call this action listener within a specified period of time. You will understand what I'm talking about as we go on later. Okay, now I'm gonna create a timer. Control Shift I. Now the timer I'm gonna import belongs to the swing package. Make sure that you select the swing package and not these other things here, because there are lots of timers in the Java library. Just make sure you select the swing, javax.swing. I'm gonna click OK here. This timer, it's gonna help us call this action performed constantly after a specified period of time. So I'm gonna create a variable here. I will call it selected index. This variable will tell us which button was selected, because we're gonna have 5 times 5 buttons in our grid. So in total we're gonna have 25 buttons. So selected index tells us which button the user clicked. Okay, so and then I'm gonna declare a boolean here, call it button selected, and initially it's gonna be true. Now this will tell us whether a button was selected. If a button was selected, then we're gonna change its color, and then if it wasn't, we're gonna change its color back to its original color. Okay, so I'm gonna create a method here, call it set button selected index, and then boolean selected, and then I'm gonna declare an array of buttons, indexed buttons. I'm gonna say button, call it buttons, and then indexed button, and then here I'm gonna say row count times column count. Okay, and then I'm gonna initialize my buttons. We're going to provide it I as the argument. So this is the I we provide here is going to be the location within the grid of all of the buttons. And then I'm going to add an action listener to this button. And then I'm going to call add top panel. And then after, I'm gonna create that method here. JPanel, call it top panel is equal to jpanel, and then I'm gonna set the layout to flow layout. I want all elements to start aligning to the left, so I'm gonna say flow layout dot left, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift and I to import the jpanel. Okay, now I'm gonna declare a component here, call it JLabel. This will show us the score. Call it label score. Control Shift I to import, and then I'm gonna create a progress bar here. Call it progress bar. This will let us know of the time left in order to complete our pattern match. Okay, and then I'm gonna have another button here. I'm gonna call it btn start. Okay, and then I'm gonna initialize those buttons here. btn is equal to new j button, call it start, and then after I add the action listener to it. And then I initialize the progress bar. And then I initialize the score. Label. For now, we're just gonna say score. We're gonna change it later. And then I say top panel.add, starting with the button. And then I add the progress bar. And then lastly, I add the score. Okay, and then I'm gonna call the add grid method here. Copy this, and then declare the method here, add grid. And then I'm gonna have a jpanel here. Actually, I will call it center panel. So I'll need jpanel. And then it's gonna have a grid layout. This layout will make sure that our buttons are laid out in a grid. So I'm gonna set the row of the grid to row count and the column of the grid to column count. Okay, and then actually let me copy this code here and paste it here. Okay, and then I'm gonna add center panel. I'm gonna add to the center panel the buttons. Okay, and then I'm gonna add to our frame the top panel. I want the panel to be at the top. Okay, so I'm gonna specify north because the default layout of our frame is gonna be border layout. This allows you to align things in a like east, west, south. You know, when you resize your window, your components are gonna be automatically resized as well. Okay. And I also need to add the center panel. I want it to be at the center, so I type center. Okay. And now I'm gonna call pack. Now the pack method here will make sure that the size of our window depends on the maximum size of the components that are in it. Okay, so for the center panel here, I'm gonna set its preferred size to 500 by 500. Okay, now I'm gonna run my program. You see, our UI is now complete. Okay, now I'm gonna initialize the timer. Timer is equal to new timer, and then I'm gonna specify the duration in milliseconds. So I'm gonna say 900 milliseconds. So our action performed method will be called every 9 milliseconds. Okay, and then I'm gonna say this refers to our action listener. Okay, now I'm gonna go here to set button selected, and then I'm gonna say color is equal to selected color.blue, and then null. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift and I to import the color class. Okay, now this is called, this question mark here, to get this whole expression here is called, it's a ternary operator. Basically what it means is that if the value of selected is true, then the value of color will be blue, and then if it's not true, then the value of color is gonna be null. Now if we wanna return back to our original color, we're simply gonna change it to null. So I'm gonna say buttons and then index and then set background. Okay, and now I'm gonna create a method here. I'll call it start pattern display. This will start the process of changing the color every 900 milliseconds. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set the color of all the buttons to their default color. Then I'm gonna say null. And then here I'm gonna declare a method called randomize selected index. This will generate a random number that we can use to select our button within the grid. So now what I need to do is I'm gonna declare an array list. And then I will call it selected indices. Okay, this array list will store all of the buttons that were previously selected, so that we are able to match them when the user selects it again. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my start pattern and I'm gonna clear selected indices. This will remove everything in our array list, and then I'm gonna call randomize selected index. Okay, and then here I'm gonna say do, and then assign selected index to a random number In order to do that, we're gonna call math.random. This will return a boolean, a double within the range of 0 point something up until 0.9. I can't remember properly. But the important thing here is that we're gonna generate a number that's between 0 and the number of our buttons minus 1. So I'm just gonna say times buttons dot length. Okay, we want to make sure we're putting this inside a loop because we want to make sure that it's totally a unique number, because we don't want our selections to be repeated within our grid. So I'm gonna say while selected indices. So while we have this number here, while we have selected indexes within the selected index within the selected indices, we're gonna keep on generating this number, this random number, until it's totally unique. So I'm just gonna say selected index. Okay, and then now we need to start the timer here in our start pattern display. Okay, and then here I'm gonna create a variable called object, and then I will call it source. Now get source here, this will return the object that fired this event. So this object could be either the timer or the button. So we're gonna check those matches here. I'm gonna say if source is equal to btn start, then we start our pattern display. But also we need to make sure that the timer is not running at the time. So I'm gonna say and timer is not running. Okay, because we don't want the user to try to start the pattern display even though it's already started. Okay, and now I'm gonna do another match here. If source is equal to timer, I'm gonna say process timer event, and I'm gonna copy this and then declare it here. Okay, and then I'm gonna say if selected. There's a variable I forgot to. Oh, here it is here. Button selected. Okay. So if a button is selected, then we're gonna change the button at our selected index. Actually, I will call set button selected and then provide selected index, and then I say true. Okay, and then if it's not selected, this means that this will be the second time that our timer is called. So we need to set the button back to the default color. I'm gonna say selected index and then say false, and then I'm gonna add our current index. I will add the selected index to our array. Okay. Now let us check if our program is running properly. I'm gonna say start. Okay, let me check what's the problem here. Okay, I need to call randomize index to move it to a different location here. And then after, I need to inverse my button selected variable. This means that if button selected was true, then it's going to be false. And if it was false, it's going to be true. That's what it means here. So I'm going to run it again. And then click start. You see? It's now selecting randomly. Okay, I'm going to close this now. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to keep count of how many times our button has been selected. So I'm gonna create a variable here called private int, call it selection count. Initially it's gonna be 0, okay? And then I'm gonna have another variable. I'm gonna call it max selection count. This will be the number of times of the maximum number of times our buttons will be selected. So initially I'm gonna make it 3. Okay, now what I need to do is go to my start pattern display and set selected selection count to 0. Okay, this will start the pattern display from scratch, this method here. So we need to make sure that we reset relevant values to their starting point. So I'm also going to reset the progress bar here to 0. Okay, and then I'm gonna decrease my selection count, and then if selection count is equal to max selection count, then we're gonna stop our timer. This means that now the user needs to click the pattern that was displayed. That's why we're stopping our timer here. Okay, now I'm gonna start this. Click start. 1, 2, 3, and then it should stop there. Okay, and then now we need to move on to the code of the user. So I'm gonna say if source if source is an instance of indexed button, okay, and the timer is not running, then I'm gonna store the index of this button here. I first need to typecast it. Typecast means we convert it to a different type. So I'm just gonna say indexed button, say button, and then indexed button, and then source. So this code here, if source instance of, this instance of keyword checks if this object class here extends the indexed button, meaning that it is actually a type of an indexed button, because remember, each and every class in Java inherits from the object class. Okay, so you can typecast the object class into almost any type of class if you know what could be stored, if you possibly know the type of data that the object class could contain. So I'm just gonna say button dot get index. Okay, and then now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna declare a variable here called top. Top is gonna be a variable that's the selected index that was added for the first time in our selected indices array. So every time when the button was selected, remember we added into our array list. So I'm gonna retrieve the element that's on top of our array list. So I'm gonna say selected indices dot get, and then say 0, and then here I'm gonna say if selected indices is empty, then I return. This will prevent us so that it doesn't throw an error here, because if we try to access an element here while the array list is empty, it's gonna give us an error. So we do the code check here. Okay, actually I'm not gonna say get, I want to say remove. Okay, we're gonna remove this element. At the same time we store it inside the top variable. Now I'm removing it because our user is gonna click a pattern of of our buttons. So after he clicks that button, we need to make sure that we remove it, so that we check the match on the following index in our array list. Okay, like for example, let's say the user pressed a sequence of buttons and their indices were 3 and then 1, 4. Now when the user clicks a button, and if that button matches these indices, we're going to remove it, and then the next time the user clicks another button, we match against this one. If it matches, we remove it, and so forth. Okay, and then if the index is equal to the top index, then we're gonna show a message box, show message dialog. It's gonna say well done. and then if it matches something else, we're gonna say oops, wrong cell, and then we're gonna stop the timer, and then we're gonna start the pattern display again. Wait, actually here we're gonna say we're just gonna write we're just gonna disable the button here, and then we're gonna set the text to nice. Okay, and then if our array list of indices is empty, selected indices, if it's empty, then it means the user has selected all relevant indices. So in this case, we're gonna say well done. I'm gonna say well done, and then I'm actually gonna create the method here to make things easier. I'm just gonna say stop timer. Okay, and then after saying well done here, we stop the timer, and then we start the pattern display again. But this time we increase the selection, the maximum selection count to make it harder. Okay, I'm gonna go here, say start, okay, select this, select this, select this. Okay, you see it says well done. Okay, now what I need to do after it says well done, I'm gonna go modify my start pattern display here, and then I'm gonna reset the text to an empty string, and then I'm gonna enable it. I'm gonna enable all my buttons. Okay, now let's run our program again. I'm gonna start. Okay, I say okay, and then I start again. It must do 4 times this time. 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then it must do 5 times this time. 3, 4, 5. I don't remember this. I'm just gonna click random, and then it says oops, you got the wrong cell, and then it starts again. Okay, now what is left to do now is set a timer for our progress bar. So I'm just gonna say progress timer, and then go to my init method and say progress timer is equal to new timer. This one will call our action performed method every 1 second. Okay. And then I'm gonna go here and say private int, say cur, call it current progress. Let me say current time progress. And then I'm gonna say max time progress. I'm gonna say 1000 times 10 in order to make it 10 seconds. Okay. And then I go to my action performed method. So if source is equal to progress timer, I'm going to return. I'm actually going to go here and to the init method and set the maximum. Say progress bar dot set maximum. It's going to be the maximum time progress. And then I go to my action performed method here. So if source is equal to progress timer, I'm gonna say current time progress plus equal 1000. So it's gonna increase by 1 second every time it's called here. And then I'm gonna set the progress bar here to current time progress. Okay. And then I'm gonna go to my start pattern display and start the progress timer. Start. Okay. And then I start. You see, the progress is now moving. Actually, I made a very dumb mistake here. I'm not gonna start the progress timer here. I'm only gonna start it after the main timer is finished selecting buttons. Okay. So I'm gonna go here after we stop the timer, and then we start the progress timer. Click start. And now the timer should start. Okay. Now what I need to do is modify the start pattern display and set the current time progress to 0. Okay. and then I'm gonna start this again. Start. As you can see, the progress bar is moving every 1 second. And then now what I need to do is, when the progress is full, I need to let the user know that his time is up. So I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna go here to so if progress bar dot get value is bigger than or equal to progress bar dot get maximum, okay, then I'm gonna show a message box here saying the time is up. J option pane. No, time's up. And then I'm gonna start the pattern display again. Okay, now I'm gonna run this. Start. I'm gonna wait for the time to finish. You see, it says time's up, and then it starts again. It says well done. Okay, now I need to increase the time given to the user for each and every progress he makes. So I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna stop the progress timer. Dot stop. And then I'm gonna set the delay of the timer. Say progress timer dot get delay, and then I'm gonna add an extra 3 seconds to it. Okay. Start. Okay, now I've noticed that the timer, the progress timer keeps moving, even when the user is being notified that he has completed his match. So what I'm gonna do is, oh okay, I already stopped the timer here. Okay, now what's left to do is update our score. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Let me just quickly see. Okay, I'm gonna create a variable here. I'm gonna call it current current completion. Okay, this is gonna store the progress of our like when the user clicks a button. If he gets the correct pattern for each button, this will be updated. Okay, so I'm gonna go to start pattern display here and set this value to 0. And then I'm gonna go to my action performed. And I'm gonna increase this current completion plus plus. And then here okay, and then I'm gonna provide current completion, and then I'm gonna provide max selection count, and then I'm gonna copy this. Now for those of you who don't understand the string dot format method, this basically allows you to format to pass a string in a specific format. In this case now I said percentage and d means I want an integer, so this will be replaced by the argument I provide here. So this percentage d is going to be current completion, and this percentage d, the second one, is going to be max selection count, and then the forward slash here is going to be kept as is because no format was specified. The percentage indicates that we want to specify a specific format. Okay. Now I'm gonna run my program again. Start. Okay, let me check what's the problem. Okay, I also need to set it. I'm actually gonna paste this here, and then I'm gonna move it here. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, you can see now it's showing our current progress. Okay, people, thank you for watching this tutorial. You can modify this code and do whatever you like with it. I'm gonna provide the code in the description. Now, if you found this tutorial useful, please subscribe and like. Thank you very much.